Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the Dispatch Project video. In this video, I'm going to assume that you have seen the first part, which shows what the dispatching application looks like from the user's perspective. I'm then going to go through and highlight some of the pieces of code associated with the cool features of this application. I do want to start out by walking you through the various components of my MVC pattern, the model, the view, and the controller, as they appear in Visual Studio Code. As you can see, M for models, here are all my models. V for views, here are all my views, all my Razor files. And C for controller, here's my controller. Now I think the best way for me to describe my models to you and to show the relationships between them is to show you my ERD, my entity relationship diagram. So let's do that. So this is my ERD, my entity relationship diagram. And as you can see, on the top here, I have sort of my backbone of the application, my incident, my unit, and my rescuer models. Over here, I have my user model. The user is basically the dispatcher. Now, as you can see, there's a one-to-many relationship between the user and the rescuer, between the user and the unit, and between the user and the incident, as the user the dispatcher is going to be creating all of those, right? And the thing that the user will be creating the most is the incident. I'll be creating incident after incident after incident. As you can see here, I have a many-to-many relationship between incident and unit. Why? Well, a given incident, like say a fire or a car accident, can have multiple units assigned to it. Several fire trucks, a few ambulances, a rescue squad. And although a given unit can only be on one incident at a time, right? You can't be in two places at once. Over a period of time, a given unit can be on multiple incidents. Over the course of a day, a fire engine may respond to 15 calls. So therefore, I have unit and incident as a many-to-many relationship, and the association is called a dispatch. Likewise, there is also a many-to-many relationship between a unit and a rescuer, which I call the association of the two I call an assignment, because one unit, like a fire engine, can have 3, 4, 5, 6 rescuers riding it, assigned to it at a particular time. And yes, at one instant, at one point in time, one rescuer can only be assigned to one unit. That's true. You can't be riding 2 units at the same time. But over the course of a week or a month, a rescuer may ride multiple units. And so I have these two as a many-to-many relationship, and the association between the two is called an assignment. So if we look at the incident model, we see that it has fields like location, type of incident, whether or not it's advanced life support, basic life support, medical, or fire, and a location that needs to be taken in by the dispatcher, a description of the incident, and an incident status down here, which is automatically set when a new instance of the incident class is generated to awaiting dispatch. That way, when the incident shows up on the incident board, it will be set to that status, only to then need to be changed by the dispatcher once units are assigned or once the incident is complete. Now, I mentioned that there is a many-to-many relationship between incident and unit, and that associations that are made between these two models that link them together are called dispatches. And each dispatch will have a dispatch ID and require an incident ID and a unit ID. But each dispatch will be part of a list of dispatches. And I can refer to that list as dispatched units. See, it's a list of class dispatch referred to as dispatched units. So something like incident.dispatched units will give me a list of dispatch objects, associations between incident and unit. Now if I come over here to my unit class, I see that it has fields like number, like unit type, like number type, that's like E for engine, T for truck. And also has a Boolean is available, which is set to true for whenever a unit is created in the database, an instance of the unit class is generated. Its Boolean is automatically set to true. That needs to be changed by the dispatcher depending on if it is assigned to a call. And the unit also has a response status, which will be set once it is responding to a call. It'll be set to things like en route, at the hospital, and so forth. Now, I mentioned that unit has a many-to-many relationship with incident, and it also has a many-to-many relationship with rescuer, right? We just talked about the association between unit and incident. That's called a dispatch. Now, we have this navigational property, which I've labeled calls, and it gives us a list of dispatches associated with each unit. Now, we know that each dispatch object contains a unit and an incident, so from each dispatch, we can retrieve the relevant incident information. Now, it should be noted that at any given time, a unit will only have one dispatch associated with it. There's also a many-to-many relationship between unit and rescuer. That is called an assignment. Anytime we assign a rescuer to a unit, we create an association between unit and rescuer. We call that assignment. So this navigational property, which I labeled personnel, will give us a list of these assignments. So now that we've examined our models, let's move on to the V component of the MVC pattern. Views contain Razor files, which contain HTML and CSS code, which is responsible for displaying what you see on a page. As you can see, I have views for just about everything. I have a view. My main view will probably be the dashboard page. That's the main page you see when you log into the system, to the application. It's like the home page. But I have a view for add rescuer to unit, a view for confirm removal, for login, for edit rescuer. I have a view for everything. A lot of Razor files that I've been working with here. So we talked about M being for models, V being for views, and C is for controller. I have one controller in this application called the home controller. It is responsible for handling all my get and post requests of the application. It's called controller for a reason. Anytime I change information in or add information to the database, this is the file that controls that. Anytime I click a button that routes to a particular page of the application, of the site, this is the file that handles that. So as you can see, I have a multitude of actions here. I have an action for pretty much everything. I have one, let's say I want to add a rescuer. There's a new firefighter and I want to add him into the system. There's an action for that. Say I want to view the information associated with a unit. There's an action for that. Let's say I want to make a unit not active anymore. There's an action for that. So there's an action for pretty much everything. And it's these actions that are what make the application so complex. It's this file here that is what makes the individual components of the application interact with each other and with the database. All right, so now that we've explored the MVC pattern of the application, let's take a more in-depth look at some segments of code. As you can see here on my dashboard page, which is the main page of the application, I have quite a lot of information displayed. On the left here, I have a card containing all the units currently in the system, regardless of their status. Over here, on this green card, I have all the units that are available for a call, and the number of them up here, 27. On this card, I have all the units that are currently on a call, that means dispatched to an incident, assigned to an incident. There are 3 of those. You can see them here. And down here on this red card, I have units that are not available. They're out of service for a reason other than being on a call. That could be mechanical failure, injury of the crew, illness of crew, etc. So just how did I get all these relevant bits of information onto my incident page? Well, I can thank Entity Framework for providing a very streamlined process of connecting with my database. So we're back in my home controller, and this is the dashboard action. And as you can see, I have a whole list of queries here, which provide me with lists that I then put into ViewBag, store in ViewBag, so that I can then pass it over to the Razor file. As you can see here, the list known as incidents is just a query of all the incidents currently in the database. The list available units is a query of all units with the condition that there is available Boolean is set to true. The list of all units is simply a query of all the units without any conditions. And I want to point out that there are 2 ways for a unit to be not available for another incident, for another call. 1, it can already be on a call, like that, and units on call. 2, it can just be out of service for another reason, such as I mentioned, such as mechanical failure or crew injury. So units that are on a call have to meet the condition that their call count equals 1. And if their call count equals 1, automatically their is available Boolean will be set to false. That's automatic. But here, for units that are out of service, I select units that meet both conditions, where both their unit call count is 0 and their is available Boolean equals false. If it meets both those conditions, that means it has been manually placed out of service and made unavailable by a dispatcher. So anytime a unit is assigned to a call and that dispatch is processed, its Boolean is available is automatically set to false. That's why I don't need to specify that here, because it's already the case. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is incident statuses. As you can see on our dashboard page, we have incidents here, 56 through 60, in 4 different statuses. Yes, these 2 on the bottom are both dispatched, but incident 56 is dispatched with units still on the call. Incident 58 is dispatched, but no units remain. All units have been cleared. So this incident is basically over. All that remains to be done is for the dispatcher to come over here and mark the incident complete. Incident 59 is complete. And incident 60 is awaiting dispatch. It is a newly formed, newly generated incident, new instance of the incident class, and its status is set to awaiting dispatch. So how are all these statuses set? Well, let's look at our awaiting dispatch status first. This one's easy. If we look at our incident model, it has a field called incident status, which is set automatically by default to awaiting dispatch. So anytime a new instance of the incident class is instantiated, its status, its incident status, is awaiting dispatch. Fantastic. Now let's look at how an incident status becomes set to dispatched. Well, an incident becomes dispatched when it is assigned a unit, when I click Add Units to Incident. And we see that reflected here in our home controller. This action here, called Process Dispatch, is responsible for creating the dispatch object in the database. It does that here. Once it's saved the changes in the database, it highlights the unit that is associated with the dispatch, sets its is available to false, sets its response status to dispatched, and then it highlights the incident associated with that dispatch and sets its incident status to dispatched. And that is how the incident status ends up as dispatched. All right, we've seen how an incident status is set to awaiting dispatch, and we've seen how an incident status is set to dispatched. Now let's see how an incident status is set to complete. If I want to terminate this incident here, which needs to be done, I simply click Mark Incident Complete, and I get this pop-up page here that asks me if I'm sure I want to terminate the incident. If I click this Cancel button, it'll take me back here. If I click the Terminate Incident number, I'm not going to do it quite yet, but I'll tell you what happens. Then it will simply mark the incident as complete. So this is the Confirm Complete Incident Razor file. And this button here corresponds to this button here, Terminate Incident number 58. So when I click it, I'm routed to the Complete Incident action in my home controller. Here's the Complete Incident action in my home controller. As you can see, it takes in an incident ID so that it knows which incident to refer to. And then it takes that incident and it sets its incident status to complete and then saves the changes in the database. So now that we've looked at the code that's responsible for updating the status of the incidents, let's look at the code that's responsible for actually displaying the physical appearance of these rows as it's influenced by the status of the incident. So I take you over here to my dashboard CS/HTML page, and you can see this is the code for the incident table. You can see that the table head remains unchanged, but the table body changes very much depending on the situation. So I have all these different cases for incidents. If all these if statements, if the incident status is awaiting dispatch, let the class be blinking 1, which is what makes it red and blinking. If the incident status is dispatched and the incident count equals 0, that means that it's been dispatched and it's essentially done. There's no more units left. That's like this call here. So that sets the status, the class to incident dispatched, and also has it display this no units remaining, mark incident complete. But if the incident status is dispatched and the incident dispatched units count is greater than 0, that means there's still units on the call. So the class is going to be incident dispatched, which is going to make it yellow. And then I'm going to display all the units that are still on the call here. That's this code here. If the incident status is complete, the class will be complete. That's what will give it that gray color. And we'll also display cannot add units and incident complete, no action possible, as you can see here. Again, I do just want to reiterate that the official incident status of incidents 56 and 58 is dispatched for both of them. That does not change between them. However, what does change is the second condition with incident count equaling 0 for incident 58 and incident count being greater than 0 for incident 56. We see here in the code, if it satisfies both conditions, incident status equals dispatched and units count is equals 0, that has different table data than if the incident status equals dispatched and the units count is greater than 0. So those are two different conditions, and that's what makes these two different. So now that we've looked at incident statuses, I'd like to talk about unit response statuses. Let's look at incident 56 over here. As we can see, it's a motor vehicle accident with 2 injured in front of this address. I currently have 3 units assigned to this call: Medic 10, Rescue Squad 4, Medic 239. Note, you can see those 3 reflected here in the On a Call card. Now, why are these different units, all different colors, and why is Medic 239 blinking? Well, let's take a look. Let's first look at Rescue Squad 4. We'll click on its link here to go to the View Unit page. As we can see here, Rescue Squad 4's response status is currently on the scene. It's already there. Let's look at Medic 10 now. Medic 10 is still en route. It is not yet on the scene. I guess it must have been further away. Now let's look at Medic 239. Medic 239 is red and it's blinking. Let's see why. Well, Medic 239's response status is dispatched. It's not yet en route and it's not yet on the scene. It has only just been alerted that it needs to respond to the call. Therefore, the dispatcher is awaiting confirmation from the unit that they have in fact received this alert and that they need to respond. Once the dispatcher receives this information, he or she can mark them as en route. That's why Medic 239 is blinking, to alert the dispatcher that they need to check in with this unit to see that they're responding. So how is it that all these unit response statuses are set? Well, let's look at the code that takes care of switching unit response statuses. Here I am back at the Medic 239 View Unit page, and alongside it I've brought in Visual Studio Code so we can see the View Unit Razor file that corresponds with this page. Because this unit is on a call, these status buttons are what are displayed here. That's reflected here in this if statement. If model calls.count equals 1 and model.isAvailable equals false. This unit does satisfy both these conditions, therefore it will have these buttons displayed here. Now, this form here corresponds to this button on route, and this form here with a value on the scene corresponds to this button here. So each of these forms here corresponds to a button. So when I click each of these buttons to set the status of the unit, they each route to the Edit Response Status action. So wait a minute. If they each route to the Edit Response Status action, doesn't that mean that they're each going to end up becoming the same status or changing to the same status? Well, no, because I include a parameter which I call status with each of these forms. If I want to change the status to en route, I include the parameter en route. And if I want to change the status to on scene, I include the status on scene, and so forth. If you look at my edit response status back in my home controller, you'll see that it takes in two parameters, an integer, the unit ID, and a string, which is that status. That would be this here. Depending on what that status is, this action will then direct the changing of the response status to whatever I put here. First, it queries the relevant unit from the database. If the status that I have passed in is en route to hospital, if the status I've passed in is transport, then it will change that unit's response status to en route to hospital. So that's how I take care of that. So let's say I've in fact heard from Medic 239 that they've received their dispatch and they are en route. I, as the dispatcher, will click this button here, and that will direct to Edit Response Status, passing in the status of en route. Then in the home controller, it will take in the unit ID and the string status, which I've set to en route, and it will then set that unit response status to en route. And it will therefore be changed. And if we look back at the dashboard, we can see Medic 239 is now en route, just like Medic 10. That's why its color has changed to orange. Which brings me to my next point of how exactly are the colors of the status of the units changed dependent on their statuses? What makes Medic 239 stop blinking? What makes Rescue Squad 4 green? So let's look at the code. Back in my dashboard Razor file, I'm looking at my incident table, which is essentially a for loop, iterating through all the incidents in the list called incidents, which I have provided in the context, in the action that redirects back here. Now within each incident, or rather within each active incident, I iterate through the dispatches associated with that incident for each variable D. See, as you can see, D is for dispatch in the incidents list of dispatch. And then I say if the unit associated with that dispatch has a response status of dispatched, well, assign it this class, unit dispatched. If the unit dispatched associated with that dispatch association has a response status of en route, give it the class en route, and so forth. So I'm looking at each dispatch here, and I'm looking at the unit within associated with each dispatch, and I'm seeing what response status it has, and if it equals X, Y, or Z, I give it different classes. So if the response status is dispatched, it will have the class unit dispatched, which is what will make it blink and be red. That's why Medic 239 was initially blinking in red. Now that it's en route, it has this class en route, which is simply what makes it orange. So that's how I display all of the unit response statuses. So here I am on Medic 239's unit page. And I should point out that while pressing these buttons here and submitting these forms changes the status to whatever is listed on the button, the same cannot be said for this button here. When I click this Clear of Incident button here, it does not just refresh the page and have Clear of Incident appear here. No, instead something different happens. Let's see. When I click this button, I'm first taken to a Confirm Action page that tells me that lets me know what will happen if I in fact proceed. This action will mark this unit clear of whatever incident it was on and place this unit back in service, changing its status to available. So I have a choice. I can cancel or I can proceed with this and in fact clear Medic 239. So this button will not take us to the action Edit Response Status. Let's look at the code to see what it takes us to. This is the Razor file that corresponds to the page that we were just looking at, called Confirm Clear from Incident, the one with the green button. And this is the form that corresponds to that green button. As you can see, that form passes in a couple of parameters. It passes in the unit ID and it passes in the incident ID. And it routes to the action called Remove Unit. So let's take a look at the action Remove Unit in our home controller. Back in our home controller, here we are at the Remove Unit action. And yes, it's called Remove Unit, but it really should be called Remove Dispatch, because that's what it's doing. It's severing the association between a unit and an incident, those that we passed in. It's not really removing a unit from anything, it's removing a dispatch. So I use that unit ID and the incident ID to query the dispatch that I want. It has to have an incident ID equal to the one I passed in and a unit ID equal to the one I passed in. Then I use this command to remove that dispatch, which I've called dispatch to remove. Then I highlight the unit that's been passed in and I call it unit to restore. And I set its is available back to true so that it's ready for another call. And I change its response status to null so that it doesn't have a lagging response status. Then I go ahead and save my changes and redirect back to my dashboard. So let's see this unit actually being removed, right? Because I haven't actually done that yet. I've just shown you the code. Here we can see Medic 239 is still, in fact, assigned to this incident. Let's go ahead and change that. I'll click on Medic 239. I'll click Clear of Incident. This Confirm Action button will pop up. And when I click this button, it's going to, again, sever that association between it and the incident, remove that dispatch from the database, and voila, Medic239 is no longer on this incident. It's no longer on a call. It is up here. Where is it? There it is. Available for service. If we click on its status, it is now available in service. So now, I'd like to walk through the back end of an entire incident, from its creation all the way to its completion. We've talked about changing incident statuses and updating unit response statuses, so the main new thing here will be the addition of units to incidents, the creation of dispatch objects. So when I receive a call as a 911 dispatcher, I have to spring into action, and I have to click this button in order to create a new incident. What happens when I click this button? Well, the button routes me to the Create Incident action in my home controller, which returns a view of the file called Create Incident. That's this Razor file over here. And this Razor file contains a form that takes in a location, a description, a type, the user ID, the dispatcher that's creating it, all the information necessary to generate a new instance of the incident class. So let's see that in action. When I click Create New Incident, I'm directed to the form that we just saw. And I have to enter the relevant location. So this incident, I'm told this incident takes place at 774 West Superior Avenue, apartment 201. And I'm told that it is a 77-year-old male, diabetic, emergency, decreased level of consciousness. I know from my dispatching training that is an ALS, an advanced life support call requiring paramedics. Okay, so now I've put in all the relevant information and I'm ready to click Generate New Incident. When I click this Generate New Incident button, I'm submitting this form here, which is this form here. And when I submit that form, it takes all this information, the location, the description that I've put into it, and routes to the action Add Incident in my home controller. So what I love about C# is that when I go to my controller and I locate the Add Incident action, it essentially takes all the necessary information that it needs that I submitted in the form, and it creates a new incident for me, which I call New Incident. It just does it for you. That's what I love about C# and .NET. And then, if the model state is valid, if it passes all the validations, it adds that new incident to the database and then saves the changes. So now we have a new instance of our incident class, and let's see that in action. I'm going to click Generate New Incident. It's going to do all that and then reroute me back to the dashboard page where this new incident will appear. And as I said before, when new incidents are generated, their incident status is set by default to awaiting dispatch. That's what gives it this red blinking feature. And it's that blinking feature that reminds me that I have a job to do as the dispatcher. I need to dispatch units to this incident. I need to create associations between this incident and units known as dispatches. So I'm going to click this button, Add Units to Incident, and I get to this page here. So how did that happen? Well, when I click this button here, as you can see on Visual Studio Code, here's my dashboard Razor file. And here we are in the if statement. If the incident status is awaiting dispatch, which it is, you'll see this Add Unit to Incident A tag. And that routes me to Add Unit to Incident in the home controller. And this is Add Unit to Incident in the home controller. And it returns a view of that Razor file, which is this right here. So here is the Add Unit to Incident page of the application and the corresponding Razor file here. Now, I obviously need quite quite a lot of information queried from the database in order to display this page here. I need a list of available ambulances, available engines, medics, and trucks, and rescue squads, so that I can display all that information here, so then I can choose one of these units to dispatch to the incident. So back in my home controller, in the add unit to incident action, again, I can thank Entity Framework for the ease with which I can run these queries from the database. I simply query the available units, the available ambulances, the available medics, engines, all types of units. Let's see how that's done. Available ambulances is units. I query the units, where the is available Boolean is true, and the number type equals A. Because if the number type equals A, it's an ambulance. Likewise here, if the number type equals M, it's a medic. If the number type equals E, it's an engine over here. And then I store these lists in ViewBag. And of course, I do also need to provide the incident that we're going to be dispatching to here. So here I do that. ViewBag incident to edit is the incident where the incident ID equals the one that we pass in here to the action. So now that I have that relevant information stored in ViewBag, I can come over to my add unit to incident razor file, and I can display that information wherever I want to. So the information regarding the incident up here in this white card is all here. ViewBag incident to edit type, incident to edit location, that's all here. I have great access to that. Now, of course, in order to display the relevant information on these color-coded cards here, I come down here, and this is my ambulance card. So you can see I have a for each loop. For each unit A in that list of available ambulances that I provided myself, I want to display the number type of the unit, that would be A, and the number of the unit, that would be the number, like 339 or 268. So for each unit in that list, it displays those properties. It does the same for medics down here in the medic column, and the same for engines, trucks, and rescue squads. Okay, so now I actually want to dispatch a unit. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I look at the relevant information here, and I look at the recommendation here, and it tells me that I need one medic unit per number of injured persons. Well, I happen to know that Medic 239 is the closest medic unit, yes, even though it was just on a call, and so I decide to select Medic 239. But how do I select Medic 239? Well, you'll notice Medic 239 is clickable, and I've made it so. As you can see here, all the units displayed in each card are contained within an A tag that passes in, that makes them clickable, and that passes in an incident ID and the unit ID, and routes us to the confirm action on our home controller, which then brings us to this confirm CSHTML page. So this confirm this confirm razor file is what you see here. Now I have two options. I can either cancel the dispatch, which is highlighted by this A tag here, or I can dispatch Medic 239, which is highlighted by, represented by this form here. Now clicking cancel dispatch will simply route me back to my add unit to incident page that we were just on. But clicking dispatch Medic 239, as we see here, will pass in the unit ID, the incident ID, and route us to the action process dispatch. We come over here to our home controller, and our process dispatch action will take in the necessary information that we need, namely the incident ID and the unit ID, and it will create a new dispatch or association for us, a new instance of the dispatch class, and then, which I will call new dispatch, And it will take new dispatch and add it to the database, and then save the changes. And that's not all it has to do. Once a unit is dispatched, it can't be available for anything else. So as we said before, we have to highlight that unit and set it to not available, set its is available to false, set its response status to dispatched, and that is in turn where we update the incident also to dispatched. So a lot happens in this action here. So I'm going to go ahead and click dispatch medic 239, and we'll see all this be carried out. And then after I dispatch medic 239, it will redirect to the dashboard. We'll see that too. And as we can see, medic 239 has indeed been added to this incident. The dispatch object has been created in the database. So now that medic 239 has been dispatched to this incident, we can look at its unit page and view all its information. We see that it's on a call and that its response status while on that call is set to dispatched. So we've already talked about updating response statuses. So when the time comes and they let me know they're ready, I'll put them en route, then eventually on the scene, then eventually transporting to the hospital, then eventually at the hospital. And when they're finally finished at the hospital and they leave and they're ready to clear the incident, you might think I have to click here, but I actually don't have to. If I come back to my dashboard, I see that I only have one unit assigned to this call. I know it's about to clear the call and the call is about to be over. So why carry out two steps if you can just carry out one? All I need to do now that I know that this unit is in fact ready to be cleared is I can just mark the incident complete. It'll take care of severing the association between this unit and this incident. So if I click Mark Incident Complete, I'm brought to this Confirm Complete Incident page. And I have two options. I can either cancel and be brought back to the dashboard, like so, or I can click Terminate Incident number 61 and, well, let's examine the code to see how I get to this page and what happens when I click that button. So here we are back on my dashboard Razor file page, and we see that we're in the case, this yellow incident here, where the incident status is dispatched and the incident dispatched units count is greater than 0 because we still have medic 239 on it. So it's greater than 0. Then I scroll down to see where this Mark Incident Complete link is, and that would be right here. And we see that that link takes me to the action Confirm Complete Incident and passes in the incident ID. So I've rearranged the view here so that we can get a better sense of what happens. When I click Mark Incident Complete, we get to this page here, the Confirm Incident page as we saw, which corresponds to this Razor file here. Now this Terminate Incident number 61 corresponds to this button here, Terminate Incident Number, and see provides the incident ID. And if we click that button, we are directed to the action Complete Incident, and the incident ID is passed in. In our home controller, we see that the action Complete Incident takes in the incident ID, locates the incident that we're going to complete, and marks its status, incident status, as complete. Then it saves the changes. But we're not done yet. Remember, there's still that one unit on the call. Medic 239 has not yet been cleared. So what's going to happen to it? Well, I take care of that here. This code here highlights all the dispatches that are associated with this unit. Makes a list of them. It says for each of those dispatches, I want you to remove it. So that means any unit that's still on the call, any dispatch that's still associated with the call, will be removed. And then for that dispatch, the unit associated with that dispatch will be made available. So Medic 239 the dispatch associated with Medic 239 in this incident will be severed. And then Medic 239, which is the unit associated with the dispatch, will have its Boolean is available made to true. The database will save the changes and will redirect to the dashboard. So let's see that happen. And as we can see here, this incident is now complete. Medic 239 is no longer there. It is back in service again, ready for another call. And we did not do that by clearing it on its status page. We did it simply by marking the incident complete. So it's just a way to save you some time. Okay, so that completes the section on tracking an incident all the way from its creation to its completion. So what I'd like to talk about now is a little more simple. I'd like to talk about the pairing of rescuers to units, right? Every rescuer comes in at the beginning of each shift. They need an assignment for the day. And that's why I have called the association between unit and rescuer an assignment. That's what it's called in the model. So if I scroll down to the bottom of my incident page, I see I have 3 buttons. One for create new rescuer, one for create new unit, and one for available personnel. So I've rearranged the view a bit to show you that on my dashboard Razor page, these 2 forms here correspond to these buttons here, create new rescuer, create new unit, and this A tag here corresponds to this button here, this available personnel button, which is what we're interested in, and it has the action available personnel. So in our home controller, when we click that, it's going to take us to available personnel, which is going to return a view of the Razor file with the name available personnel, and it's going to provide us some information. We can see that when we arrive on the personnel page, we need 2 lists. We need a list of all personnel in the system, and we need a list of personnel that are available for assignment. Those whose is assigned Boolean is false. If their is assigned Boolean is true, you'll see that reflected here. It will show them as assigned to unit, and it will display the unit to which they are assigned. So here in my home controller, in the available personnel action, I query the all rescuers here, which is just dbcontext.rescuers, including all the associated fields. And then I also have available rescuers. I want all rescuers where r.assigned is false. Because if r.assigned is false, that means they're not assigned to anything and they are available for assignment. So I have these lists stored in ViewBag, and then I can use them on my Razor page. So if I switch over to my available personnel Razor file, which corresponds to this page here on the site, we see that I have 2 tables, one for available personnel and one for all personnel. The table for available personnel is here. Here's the table body. And the table for all personnel is here. And here's the table body. Now, as you can see, I've color-coded the table based on the ranks of the rescuer. Firefighter 1s are red, whatever this reddish color is. Firefighter 2s are orange. Paramedics are gold. And EMTBs, basic EMTs, are light blue. Now, rather than have to type this code out for each case, depending on the rank, I've made use of a ternary operator. And here it is right here. And it reads like this. Does the rescuer's rank equal EMTB? If yes, then assign this row the class of EMT, which is what will give it this nice light blue color. Else, does the rank equal paramedic? If yes, assign the row the class paramedic, which is will make it gold. Else, does the rank equal firefighter 1? If yes, give the row the class firefighter 1, which is what will make it red. Else, does the rank equal firefighter 2? If yes, give it this class here, which will give it this nice orange color. Else, does the rank equal lieutenant? If yes, assign it the class lieutenant, which will give it this pretty white color. And if it doesn't match any of these conditions, don't give it any class at all. So yeah, I love ternary operators. They really simplify things greatly and make it possible to specify which class you want to include based on what condition you want to satisfy. Okay, so here we are back to full view, and let's say I want to add a rescuer to a unit. Well, there's two ways I can do that. I can either click Available for Assignment, this link here, or I can go to the rescuer profile and click Assign to Unit there. They both take me to the same page, which looks like this. Now, this Choose Assignment page for EMTB John Conley looks different than this assignment page for Jack Douglas. Why do they look different? Why does Jack Douglas have 3 cards and John Conley only have 1 card? Well, the answer is because the card that will be rendered will differ depending on the rank of the rescuer. John Conley is an EMTB. He can only ride an ambulance. He can't ride anything else. Jack Douglas is a firefighter too. He can ride an engine, a truck, or a rescue squad. He can't ride a medic unit or an ambulance. Let's look at some code to examine why. As you can see here, the Available for Assignment link here will lead me to the Add Rescuer to Unit action in my home controller. If we look at the Add Rescuer to Unit action, it will return a view of the template called Add Rescuer to Unit, which is here, and which looks like this for Firefighter 2, and this for an EMT. So I'm going to need to provide a lot of information that I can then display on this Add Rescuer to Unit page here. I'm going to need a list of all units, all divided by types. I'm going to need a list of ambulances, of all medics, of all engines, trucks, and of all rescue squads. I'm also going to need the rescuer that I'm going to add to that unit. Therefore, I have to pass in a rescuer ID for this action and query the rescuer from the database whose rescuer ID equals that I have passed in. So the way I differentiate between the type of units is I query for all the units, like for ambulances, for all the units, and set the condition where the unit's number type equals A, because all ambulances have A before the number. And like for medics, where the unit type is M, and for engines, where the unit type is E. So now that I have all this relevant information, how am I going to control what appears on this page depending on the rescuer's rank? Well, I've structured my Add Rescuer to Unit Razor file in such a way that each rank of rescuer has a different page rendered for them. So here I have, if the rank equals EMTB, display available ambulances for assignment. Then I have a for each loop. For each unit in viewbag.ambulances, display its number type, that would be A, and its number. But if the rescuer rank is Firefighter 2, like we see right here, they're not just going to have only 1 card. They're going to have a card for available engines that can be selected. That's this pink card. There's going to be a card for trucks that can be selected for assignment. That's this orange card. And there's going to be a card for rescue squads that can be selected. That's this purple card. And of course, for each type of unit, I have a for each loop that displays for each unit in that list, displays the number type and the number, all within the select element. So you have all the rescue squads that can be assigned here, all the trucks that can be assigned here. So now I want to actually add Firefighter 2 Jack Douglas to a unit. Let's say I want to add him to a rescue squad. Well, rescue squads appear here, so he can ride a rescue squad. I just have to choose the one that I want. Let's say Rescue Squad 18. Okay. Now, what happens when I actually click this button here that says Assign Firefighter to Jack Douglas to Rescue Squad? Well, if I look at my Add Rescuer to Unit Razor file, in my Firefighter 2 conditional, I scroll down to my Rescue Squad's card, which is here, and I see that this green button here corresponds to this form here. Now, where does this form lead me to? Well, its action is process assignment, and I pass in a unit ID, and I also pass in a rescuer ID here. And we know that those are the two parameters that we need in order to create an assignment. So over in our home controller, our process assignment action takes in that unit ID, that rescuer ID, and creates an association between them, which we call an assignment, a new instance of the assignment class. Now we call that new assignment, new assignment. Then we have to add new assignment to the database. Then we have to take the rescuer that we have just assigned to that unit, and we have to change his isAssigned Boolean to true, because he's no longer unassigned. Now he's assigned to a unit. So then we need to redirect to view unit, and we need to pass in the unit ID of the unit that has just been assigned, so that the view unit page knows which unit to display. So let's actually add Jack Douglas to Rescue Squad 18. Click the button, the association will be made, and we redirect to the Rescue Squad 18 unit page, and there you can see Jack Douglas is listed on the personnel list. If I come back to my personnel page, I see that Mr. Douglas is no longer in available personnel because he's not available anymore. He is instead over here. And his status is listed as assigned to unit, and it shows the unit to which he has been assigned. We can click on his rescuer profile and see the same thing. All his information and his current assignment, and we even have the option to remove him from the unit here. This is reflected in the code on the View Rescuer Razor page. We can see here if model, which is the rescuer, dot isAssigned equals true, which it is, then for each assignment in model.assignUnit, now again, this is a list of his assignments. That number is only going to be 0 or 1, because he can't be assigned to more than one unit at the same time. So really, you're only going to have one here. But for each assignment A, please display current assignment and then the unit assigned associated with that assignment, the number type, and its number. And that's what you get here. And then following that, please include a button which will allow us to remove that rescuer. If I look at somebody who is not assigned, like say Firefighter 1 Pat Beaudry, I click on his rescuer profile, it'll say something different down here. It'll say no unit assigned, and it'll give me the option to assign to unit, and that is reflected here in the other conditional if model.isAssigned equals false. Then display no unit assignment, and then an A tag which will route you to add rescuer to unit. So anyway, the way I get all these personnel to appear on this unit page here is thanks to this for each loop. Model.personnel, the model is the unit, and model.personnel gives us a list of assignments, as you can see. So I say for each assignment, which I call ASST, in that list, please give me the assignment and the rider assigned associated with that assignment's last name. Give me the rider assigned associated with the assignment's first name. Give me his rank. And then give me the option via this A tag to remove him from the unit. You can see that if I were to click this button here, this tag here, it would take me to the action remove rescuer from unit, which would take in the unit ID, the rescuer ID, and highlight the assignment from the database, and then remove that assignment. Save the changes, and then would set the rescuer to is assigned equals false. Because if you're severing the association between rescuer and unit, and you're deleting that assignment, well, that rescuer is now not assigned to anything. He or she is available to be assigned to something. So then you, of course, redirect back to the View Unit page, and you pass in the unit ID as equaling the unit ID that you have passed into this action in the first place. So we can remove Jack Douglas from this unit, and you'll see he is no longer there. And that is how you assign and unassign personnel from units. Alright folks, that concludes this video. I really hope you enjoyed watching and that you found it informative. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, thank you so much for watching.